The EU, UK, and US were outraged at Iran firing some 300 projectiles at Israeli military sites, but couldn't care less about Israel committing what the ICJ says is plausibly a genocide in Gaza.
It is combat, it is bloody, it is ugly, and it's going to be messy. Innocent civilians are going to be hurt, but it is going to happen, and that doesn't make it right. All I can tell you is we're going to continue to make sure Israel has the tools and the capabilities that they need to defend themselves.
At this point, when are we going to just start calling things for what they are? The governments of the collective West operate clearly under a supremacist ideology, and their double standards reflect it. European Union leaders are now backing new proposals over Iran's retaliatory attack against Israel, yet they remain silent over Israel's murder of 40,000 plus Palestinians in Gaza, when you include those missing who are assumed to be dead, almost 70% of whom were women and children. While the governments of the collective West attempt to build ethical arguments as to why they impose sanctions upon and actively work to combat the Islamic Republic of Iran, these double-standard moral principles on which they claim to stand easily fall apart under scrutiny. For instance, the EU, US, and UK refuse to even recognize explicitly that Israel bombed the consular segment of Iran's embassy in Damascus, Syria, murdering over a dozen people, and these same governments work to prevent any condemnation of the Israeli attack at the UN Security Council. Iran's retaliatory strikes, on the other hand, did not hit diplomatic or civilian sites, and instead targeted military facilities, with not a single confirmed death. While US President Joe Biden called Russia's invasion of Ukraine a genocide, and Western leaders cried crocodile tears over the children of Ukraine, the cold response to the mass murder of Palestinian children by Israel has been telling. During 2 years of war between Moscow and Kiev, the child death toll was tragically reported to be around 550, while the combatant death toll was in the hundreds of thousands. In contrast, the Israeli regime has murdered at least 15,000 children in Gaza in just over 6 months. During the first 2 years of the Daesh insurgency in Iraq, 18,800 civilians were said to have been killed by the terrorist group in total. Even when we don't count the thousands of missing children under the rubble, Israel has murdered almost this number of children alone in Gaza, except in a quarter of the time that it took Daesh to inflict its worst ever civilian death toll. Not only does Israel now stand accused at the International Court of Justice to be committing a plausible genocide in Gaza, it has violated more UN resolutions than any other state in the history of the United Nations. Tel Aviv also awaits a pending war crimes case at the International Criminal Court, ICC. This, as Israel has been labeled by all the major human rights organizations as an apartheid regime, whether you're looking at Amnesty International, human rights, all the way over to Israel's top human rights group, B'Tselem. With a worse civilian kill rate than Daesh, standing plausibly guilty of genocide at the top judicial body on earth, recognized as an apartheid regime by every major and relevant human rights group, the mere fact that Western governments continue to claim that Israel is defending itself robs them of any credibility. Now, instead of punishing the Israelis for actual violations of international law, they instead choose to punish Iran for the crime of, you guessed it, defending itself.